Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and the playoffs are set. We have all the matchups in the AFC, who the Texans are going to face, and I will give you my opinion on whether or not I think the Texans are going to advance to the divisional round of the playoffs. After the Texans, they took care of business up against the Tennessee Titans today, which that's a whole nother kind of subject that we got to talk about, because now the Titans have the number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. But that's not why you're here. You're here for the Texans playoff matchup. It's going to be Texans up against, drumroll please, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Superchargers. We will be facing them in the first round of the playoffs after the Steelers lost on Saturday. The Chargers took care of business up against the Raiders on Sunday. So now it's set. Chargers will be playing the Texans in the wild card round. The other matchups that we're going to see, obviously, the Chiefs get a first round bye, being the number one seed. And then we have the Broncos going up to Buffalo to play the Bills. And then, maybe one of the best matchups we've seen in a while. An AFC North showdown rivals. It's going to be the Baltimore Ravens at home up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And obviously, a lot of stuff going on with all these matchups. And the Texans, they will be facing the Chargers in round one. I did not see it coming, but I want to hear from you at home. Let me know down in the comments section, what's your confidence level in the Texans beating the Chargers? If you've watched my videos, you probably know where I stand on this, where it, comes out to be where the Texans are facing the Chargers or any other team in the playoffs, because the Chargers, they obviously weren't my number one choice. If I had to pick, it would have been the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we can't do anything about it now. It's going to be the Chargers. Let me know your confidence level in this team moving forward. Scale it 1 to 100. If you have no confidence at all, that's a 1. You think they're going to lose, no chance that they win. If you think the Texans are getting a dub, it's going to be Dub City for H-Town, then go with 100. You, the YouTube ad break here, perfect timing. Scroll on down and give me your confidence level. Be honest, no cheating. Let me know your confidence in the Houston Texans. So the starters played today for the Texans. We're going to say that first up, and they looked really good. C.J. Stroud had one drive up against the Titans. Obviously, it's the Titans. They have the number one pick, so they're not a great team to begin with. But C.J. looked good. Nico Collins looked good. This run game, this offensive line looked a lot better today than it has in the past. With all that being said, I'm going to go 85 confidence level. And it's because the defense. I think DeMeco Ryans, this Texans defense, will show out when they're needed. I really have confidence in the defensive line. I know the Chargers O-line, they're very good. They have Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. But I'm ready to see Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, Foley Fatukasi, Derek Barnett, who had another amazing game today up against the Tennessee Titans. I'm excited to see these guys ball out. And I think that's going to be the difference maker, is the Texans defensive line and the Texans defense. Obviously, the Chargers, they have Justin Herbert, a young ascending quarterback. When you look at their weapons, they don't have a ton. Ladd McConkey's their number one, who's a rookie out of Georgia. They also have Quentin Johnston, who is a decent wide receiver. But in the grand scheme of things, in terms of weapons, they don't scare me as much as some of the other teams in the AFC. So I really trust this defensive line to get after Justin Herbert. I trust Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter to cover these guys on the outside. And I really think the Texans defense can be kind of the spark that helps this team really take down the Los Angeles Chargers. So my confidence is at about an 85 right now. I'll break more down around this matchup and how the Titans win or Titans loss today could be really a win. I'll break that down in just a moment, but couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsors over at Prize Picks. Get started today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there with over 5 million active members. Get started today. All you got to do, choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and place your entry. It really is that simple. Get started today with Prize Picks, and it's playoff time. We told you, it's playoff time, not only in the NFL, but also in college. So if you want to get in on the action, win some money, do it over with Prize Picks. You can get money by just knowing your stuff around the football field. So get started today with our friends over at Prize Picks. For my viewers, we have a great deal for you. Use code CLNS, get $50 instantly when you play $5. Yes, use code CLNS, $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. So get started today with our friends over at Prize Picks. Like I said, it's playoff time. So get in on the action. Get $50 when you play 5 over at Prize Picks. Just use that code CLNS and get started today. So, as I mentioned, with the playoffs matchups that we have going on, looking at kind of these other matchups, Ravens against Steelers, I think that's a good matchup for the Ravens. They've played the Steelers twice, but obviously an AFC North showdown. And then the Broncos going up to play the Bills. And you can't convince me. No one can convince me that the Chiefs didn't throw today's game up against the Broncos. The Bengals had a chance to get into the playoffs, a much better team, in my opinion, right now at this point in the season than the Broncos. The Chiefs lose 38-0. I know they were playing backups, but at the end of the day, I am 99.99% sure that the Chiefs just went ahead and threw this game today. You can't convince me otherwise. The best team in the NFL lost 38-0. Backups or not, Andy Reid is a good head coach. And for him to lose 38-0, there's something fishy going on there. And I'm pretty sure they knew, hey, I'd much rather face the Broncos if it came down to it, because you got to think the Chiefs have that number 1 seed. They play the lowest seed remaining. So say the Bills-Bengals game, or say the Bills-Broncos game, if the Broncos were somehow able to win that game, Chiefs would be playing the Broncos. Now, if I'm the Chiefs, I'd much rather face the Broncos in that situation than if the Bengals were to get in and upset the Bills, then you'd have to play the Bengals, and we already know the history between the Bengals and the Chiefs. So I'm 99.9% sure that the Chiefs just went ahead and threw this game. But speaking of throwing games, a lot of people were saying that the Texans should have thrown away today's game because after the results from the other Sunday matchups, the Titans actually have the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. After their loss today, they have number 1. The Browns have pick number 2. Giants with the 3rd pick, and then it goes Patriots, Jags, Raiders, Jets, Panthers, Saints, and Bears. And we saw today in today's game, even though they mentioned, oh, we're going to rotate quarterbacks, we're going to do this and that. Week 18 game that doesn't mean anything, and you don't play Will Levis the entire game. You put in Mason Rudolph instead. I mean, that tells me everything I need to know around Will Levis and the Titans. They're going to be selecting a quarterback number 1 overall. I don't know if it's going to be Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, but I would put my money on it right now that the Titans select a quarterback number 1 overall. Now, obviously, if you're the Texans winning this game, getting some momentum into the playoffs, you're more concerned about yourself and how you're doing rather than the other teams and how the draft lays out. You're not even focused on that. You're focused on the playoffs. But at the end of the day, the win today for the Texans did secure that number 1 overall pick. And during my live show, which I'll be going live for the Texans versus Chargers playoff game, I go live for all the games here on Texans Today. A lot of people during the live show were saying, hey, maybe we should try to throw this game. Maybe we should give the Titans another win and make sure that they don't get the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, the Texans didn't go down that route. DeMeco Ryans played the starters, but only played them for the first drive. And then it was Davis Mills, Dameon Pierce, and the rest of the backups getting work. The starting offensive line played, I believe, almost the entire game for the Texans. But for the most part, backups were in for the Texans. So it's not like they were going full force up against the Titans. But I think regardless, it was a good thing for the Texans to get this dub today, to make sure they have some momentum, get on the right side, and get some confidence going before you have to play in the playoffs up against the Chargers. And if you kind of had your head under a rock for the past, 9.5 minutes, reminder, the Texans will be facing off up against the Chargers in the wild card round, the first round of the playoffs. And I'm pumped for it. I mean, I think regardless, I do think the Texans match up a little bit better up against the Steelers. But at this point, all the records are out the window. I mean, you have the Chiefs who have a first-round bye, but it's win and you're in. Win and advance, survive and advance in the playoffs. It's an entire new season if you're the Houston Texans, and you can take control of the narrative. You can take control of everything because regardless of how this team played today, I think most NFL pundits would say the Texans are the worst division winner in the AFC. Obviously, they're the 4 seed. I think a lot of people are overlooking the Texans going into the playoffs. That's kind of right where you want to be if you're the Texans right now. You want to be playing well and teams overlooking you because you can have a chance to really shock a lot of people going into the NFL playoffs, especially the Chargers, who they're playing their butt off today because they wanted to play the Texans rather than the Baltimore Ravens. Now you got to go out there and prove your worth. DeMeco Ryans, C.J. Stroud, this Texans defense, the Texans offensive line, everybody on this team has to prove their worth going into the playoffs. And I'm excited for them to do just that. Make sure to hit that sub button. I'll be breaking down more around this game, the latest news and rumors around this team all throughout the week, and we'll be live for the Texans matchup up against the Chargers. So make sure you hit that sub button, turn on your notifications, and don't miss anything this week as we get ready for Wild Card Weekend here on Texans Today.